So, before we get started today, I want to do a couple things real quick. The first is to say thank you. These videos have become a little bit more serious than me just flipping open my laptop and talking at you for a while, and the feedback you folks have given me has been outstanding, so thank you for that. One of the pieces of feedback I've gotten has been that I should ask you to subscribe to my channel before I get into the video. I'm not going to do that all the time, but I'm doing it now. Please subscribe to my channel. Now let's talk about funding. What are you going to do if you can't make payroll next month? Relax, you're fine. Probably. But that question is going to keep you up at night, especially once you reach that certain point in your startup journey. That's when your business goes beyond the level where you can keep funding it with known resources. Now, this moment can happen as soon as you start your company, or it could take years. But let me assure you, when it happens like flipping a light switch, and the pressure is both instant and permanent. There's no avoiding it, whether you're starting your first company or your 15th. And furthermore, no amount of startup experience points are going to earn you that mythical get out of failure free card. So let's talk about the ounce of prevention that few startup founders take. Starting companies would be the most fun and satisfying career ever. If only I didn't have to figure out how to get them funded. In fact, there are a few binary decisions during the early stages of your startup journey that are going to be increasingly risky personal financial commitments. Founding your company, that's low risk, low reward. Launching your first offering, that's low risk, high reward if you do it right. Hiring your first employee, that's high risk, low reward. Trust me on that. And signing your first massive deal, high risk, high reward. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not being facetious. Founders who achieve any of these milestones should be proud of themselves because it means they've accomplished something significant. It also means they found a way to get there, whether that's scraping together a couple $100 to incorporate or lining up several agreements in a perfect domino-like cadence to reduce the cash outlay for the inputs necessary to secure a big revenue payday. The last part of that last sentence, that's key. It might sound like a word salad when you first hear it, but it's actually the result of the lessons I've learned after repeatedly struggling with the funding paradox. How do you afford the thing that's going to make you the money to afford the thing? That word salad from above, that's the hard way. There are a lot of easy ways. Guess which one most founders choose? Venture capital investment. I know it often sounds like I'm dead set against founders taking outside funding, but nothing could be further from the truth. I've worked for several VC-funded startups over the years, companies that could not have existed without that VC funding. In fact, I've helped make a bunch of VCs a bunch of money. But it's like this. I want you to be wealthy. I just don't want you to buy a bunch of scratch-off lottery tickets to get there. Venture capital funding is by no means an easy answer. It's essentially taking a second job alongside running your company, and it means serving copious needs other than your company's own. Here's the problem. Most founders think that they grow right along with their startup, and they do to an extent, just not financially. When that first tranche of venture funding dries up and the progress made with that funding isn't in line with the projections that produce that funding, a founder's access to capital is actually severely reduced, not increased. And this can happen to anyone. I've seen it happen at the 7 and 8 figures of revenue stage. Believe me, that keeps you awake. But like I said, the funding paradox happens to every founder, not just founders of VC-backed companies. Last week, a member entrepreneur wrote into Teaching Startup, my project to spread advice to as many entrepreneurs as possible by posting expert founder answers to member founder questions. This founder's bootstrapped company had been doing very well and just landed a huge win. The problem, serving that win would elevate the company's financial machine to a state that would push it beyond what he could continue to bootstrap. How could he market the hell out of this win to produce more wins on a bootstrap budget? This is also not an easy answer, and that's why Teaching Startup exists. But there are answers, and they can be aggregated into a strategy. Here it is. Whenever I start a new company or a new project, at some point after I've fleshed out the idea, but before I go to market, I make sure I develop a plan to run that company on bare bones if I have to and for as long as I have to. Then, for each funding decision I make afterwards, I plan for that funding to get me not just to the next level, but to the level after that and preferably a couple levels beyond. To put it simply, before I hire a person, I make sure I have the funding to hire 2 people. Now, I know life doesn't always work out this way. In fact, it rarely works out this way. And every founder has to learn to act before an opportunity becomes a sure thing. But in almost every case I've seen where a company suddenly couldn't fund its way to the next level, it's because they took funding without a plan to operate if it went away. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So make sure you're building your forever company, and at least you'll have a better chance of sleeping at night. So I've done both. I've done the self-funded, self-founded route for a number of startups that some of them have gone on to be major successes, and some of them were failures before they even got out of the gate. I've also done the VC thing over and over again, companies that could not have existed without a large chunk of VC funding getting them off the ground. Which would I rather do? I'd rather do the self-funded, self-founded route. It's just who I am. It's part of my personality, but I would not be the entrepreneur I am today without having the experience that came along with the sweat and the treadmill effect of raising large amounts of VC money. Either way, raising outside money to me is always a last resort. It's what I preach. It's what I recommend. It's what I do. And once I raise that money or consider the decision to raise that money, I've already got that money spent in those small chunks, those tranches along the way. Now, neither is a guarantee of success. If you go out and self-fund, self-found your own startup, you're not automatically going to be successful. If you go out and raise VC money, you're not going to be automatically successful. And even if you build your forever company from the ground up, you're not going to automatically be successful. So what's the point? I know I ended the post rather abruptly there. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. You better love what you do. In this video, I mentioned Teaching Startup. That's my project to make more and better entrepreneurs by providing advice to entrepreneurs at all levels, regardless of their connections or resources, at a fraction of the cost of a traditional advisor. And I want you to do me a favor. Go out, search the interwebs for Answers for Entrepreneurs or any variation of that you can think of. I want you to read a few of those answers. Then I want you to go to teachingstartup.com and I want you to look, just peruse a few of the questions and answers we've got up there. You don't have to read the entire answer. You can't read the entire answer unless you're a member. There are a couple free previews, but just read the first few sentences. I think you'll be blown away by the difference in actionable, honest, insightful advice that we have on that website. Teaching Startup is access to over 700 questions from hundreds of our member entrepreneurs, answers from handpicked, experienced serial entrepreneurs, advice posts, member polls, plus new Q&A each week in an exclusive newsletter. It's 80% of the benefit of a startup advisor for a fraction of the cost. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, please subscribe. I know I said it at the beginning. I'm going to catch you at the end as well. But if you really want to support me and what I'm doing here, you can help me help you by becoming a member and a better entrepreneur at teachingstartup.com. I appreciate you. Now go do great things.